Living Dead Girl is different from the novels of mine that have been published because it's a lot darker in tone. As far as change, it's actually pretty funny because when I first started writing, I wrote short stories, and a lot of them were very dark. So when I started writing young adult novels, all my friends were like, "You're writing young adult novels? Really?" And to this day, my best friend who reads everything I write, she always asks, "Now, is this book going to have a happy ending?" And when I say yes, she's always like, "Are you sure?" So for me, it's not significantly different in style, but it's definitely different from the books that I've had that are out and available now. Writing Living Dead Girl, it is different from my other books, and it was a bit of a departure for me just in terms of how intense the writing experience was. Usually when I get an idea for a novel, I kind of have to let it sit around for a while before I'm ready to write it. But with Living Dead Girl, it was just sort of immediate. I knew I had to write the story, and I knew I had to write it right away. It is true that the story idea for Living Dead Girl came to me in a dream, and it has happened to me before with short stories and a few other things. But the dream I had for Living Dead Girl was definitely very intense, and I didn't just have it for one night. I had it for several nights in a row, and it was the same dream every night. And I write all my dreams down, so every night I would get up and I would write down all the stuff I saw about Alice in the dream. And after a couple nights, I was like, okay, you know what? I have to write this. So the final night, I had the dream. I got up, I got out of bed, and I just wrote down one word. I wrote down Alice, and that day I started writing the novel. It's interesting to think about how Living Dead Girl affected me when I was writing it. A lot of people have responded very strongly to the kidnapping element of the book, but what really got to me when I was writing it was the victim blaming. There's a section in the book where Alice is watching television. She's watching a talk show, and they have, kind of, I think what's typical for talk shows, they bring on, people who have been in abusive relationships or have, been abused in the past. And they start off by, asking them to tell their story, and then, there's a lot of sympathy, but, sometimes there's questions like, well, why didn't you do something? Didn't you feel that you were strong enough to stand up for yourself? Or didn't you think about your family? Stuff like that. And it just really got me thinking about the culture of victim blaming that goes on, and that was something that really definitely affected me when I was writing. I could feel Alice's anger about that, the rage that people are just so willing to blame victims. I've been very surprised by how shocked people have been about the kidnapping, because kidnapping, obviously, it's a terrible thing, but it's something that I think we're all sort of used to. It happens, and it gets a lot of newspaper coverage, it gets a lot of television coverage, and it's something that's very easy to get upset about. But I think what really got to me again when I was writing was just the fact that here was this girl who has lived with her kidnapper for 5 years, and clearly something is wrong, and yet no one notices. Or if they do notice, no one says anything. I guess if I had to, pick something that I would hope readers would take away from Living Dead Girl, I would hope that people might think about, how when you're out and maybe you see something or somebody that gives you pause, that you just kind of feel something's off, that maybe people will say something or do something. That's something I would hope people would think about after reading Living Dead Girl.